Global producers, distributors, and rights holders, why are you waiting for license fee payments from your productions, both new and back catalogue? Pipe buys your entertainment receivables and turns it into upfront capital immediately. Pipe can help you pull forward up to 5 years worth of contracted license fees from all the major streamers and broadcasters, so you can use the capital to produce more, acquire more, finance more, and grow your business on your own terms. Sign up today at pipe.com/entertainment. That's pipe.com/entertainment and start fast forwarding your receivables now.
TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome back to another season of TellyCast. I hope you've had a fantastic summer and you've made it through the heat wave, the forest fires, the flash flooding, the lost luggage, and the train strikes. And you're ready for everything that the rest of 2022 has in store for us. Maybe you're still on holiday, or you're slowly ramping up for the pre-MIPCOM mayhem that kicks in September. In any case, welcome to Season 4 of TellyCast, and we're starting off much as we left off, with our first couple of shows dedicated to the UK's biggest TV industry event, the Edinburgh TV Festival. This week, we're previewing the festival, the first live edition of Edinburgh since 2019, with creative director Stewart Clarke. It's coming right up on this week's TellyCast. So, welcome back to TellyCast, Edinburgh TV Festival creative director Stewart Clarke. How are you doing, Stewart?
I'm very well, Justin. How are you? It's good to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. And right now, we're recording this on the 15th of August. So we're in the final throes of preparations for this year's Edinburgh TV Festival. You must be right now the busiest man in TV.
Yes, that is absolutely true. There is no one busier than me at this moment for this week and for next week. Guilty.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, thanks for taking time out to chat to me.
No, it's good to be here, and congrats with the podcast. I always enjoy listening.
I was looking back at some notes here, and this is episode 110. I remembered, obviously, we spoke in the very early days of TellyCast, and I've looked back at my notes, and it was actually episode 1 of TellyCast back in April 2020, which was 4 months after you took on the role of creative director at Edinburgh TV Festival following your move from Variety. So a lot of water's passed under the bridge since then.
Yeah, that sure has. Yeah, I mean, I guess at that point we just worked out that, given what was going on in the outside world, that we had to move to digital and all the sort of kind of challenges that brought with it. But I guess when we were speaking, it was just a beginning of a sort of journey into the unknown, to be completely honest, in that we just hadn't done it before. I think what we did do both years of virtual, we just didn't scale back. We didn't go, we'll really trim it and do something sort of pared back. We just went all out and had as much content as we ever did, sort of in the hope that would sort of engage people, and people would always find something sort of interest in that big mix. And, I think what did happen, it's a festival, and I think the thing about a festival is ultimately it does need to be a live, real experience. But in terms of what we did for a couple of years, through necessity rather than design, it meant that people were still talking about Edinburgh because we were still creating great content, or rather we were getting amazing people from the TV industry to talk about matters, or homing in on shows that were great fun. All the beats you have of a festival, like very crunchy conversations, big sort of weighty discussions about the future of TV. But then, the festival miss also comes from doing things that are out and out fun, and there's those lighter moments as well.
A lot of people in business found that more senior execs became more approachable or contactable during lockdown. And I certainly found that in the beginning with guests on a new podcast. And I know lots of producers that I've spoken to over lockdown, they said that they were having real success in speaking to quite senior US execs, for example, that, they may have struggled to have contacted in normal times. I was going to ask you about that, but Edinburgh has actually been known for bringing in the big hitters every year. What did you find was the biggest challenge over these 2 years? So it was 2020 and 2021, two virtual Edinburghs that you've presided over, essentially. What did you find was the biggest challenge during that time?
I think the biggest challenge was, as everyone was spending, most of their lives on Teams or Zoom or Google Hangouts or, whatever it was you were using, probably all of the above, that the idea of then running a festival, an event that also uses those services can always be a bit like fatiguing. It's like, do you want to spend any longer on a Zoom? And in a sense, in order to justify getting people to do that, you had to go over and above. I think you had to create a really compelling reason for people to be there. And the first year of digital, it was very Zoomy. And we quickly realised after that, I think we did well, but we realised that we couldn't do that again. There's no way you could just go again, because in terms of where we were then, in terms of timing, people were just sick to the back teeth of seeing Zoom. So it's like they're hardly going to want to do that in the time that they allocate for, not that this is sort of fun time, but in time, sort of festival, conference, event sort of time. So that's why we basically did everything in the studio. So when I look back at the sort of second version, I'm really pleased and really proud of what we're putting out. We're putting out broadcast quality TV with amazing names and doing what you'd expect of Edinburgh, but just shooting it in a studio, some live, a couple of bits pre-recorded. Each year was very different of those digital years, and very steep learning curve. But the truth is, it's just incredibly good to be back live and real. That is selfishly, that's what I signed up to do. So to be able to sort of deliver this year, and we're sort of a week out at the moment, so I'm sort of touching wood as I say it, but that's what I joined to do, and I'm really excited about that part.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that nearly 3 years into the role, and this being your first real-life festival event in one of the greatest cities in the world, Edinburgh, and particularly when the Fringe is going on. So, I love going up there. I've been missing it in person as well. I mean, what are you most looking forward to then, this being your first live Edinburgh?
I'm just looking forward to the live, Justin. That is what I'm looking forward to. There's not necessarily one session. I mean, there's lots of stuff I'm looking forward to in terms of specifics, but I'm looking forward to being there with thousands of people. As you say, in Edinburgh, at the best time of the year to be in Edinburgh, I would argue. There's a real buzz there, and then we exist within that at the same time. Loads of people are coming, and it's just the excitement of actually just really of getting there to be. It sounds obvious, but that's the bottom line.
Edinburgh is a very different event to pretty much every other on the international TV industry calendar. And it's unique for many reasons, but one of those is the fact that it's a charity. It's a pretty substantial event in terms of the number of sessions and panels, also the caliber of speakers that you have. Can you give us a sense of how an Edinburgh TV festival comes together? Because this year, I would argue it's probably the biggest ever. Give us an idea of where things start from and who's involved.
I mean, the simple answer is that we try to be for the industry, by the industry, for the industry, and that happens by having content committee. We call it an advisory committee of about 40 people. It's refreshed every year. That's from all corners of the TV industry. So you'll have people from all of the major broadcasters and now streamers as well. Could be commissioners, but not necessarily, but often commissioners. But then you'll have indies, then people working for those big producer distributor groups, and then you might have journalists and other sort of cultural voices in the mix as well. And the amazing thing was this year, we actually got in a room, had our meetings, and it was fantastic. It was great to get, as I say, 40 odd people saying, what should we do? What do we talk about? Who do we get to talk about these things? How do we make our sort of first year back for a while, really, really sort of meaningful and big? So that's why I say it's by the industry and for the industry, because the people who really then go on to produce each of the bits of content, each of the sessions themselves, are often people from that committee. And this is something they do outside of their day job. It's a serious piece of work. Justin, as I know you've been involved, you've seen it up close, kind of making one of those things go from just an idea in a meeting room to something where you've got 6 people in Edinburgh, possibly coming from different parts of the world, and you've got some exclusive VT and something, some news and other stuff to share. It's an undertaking, so it only works because of the support from that group.
Not going to sound overly emotional here, but there is a real love for the industry, isn't there? And I think that lots of people work in this industry for many different reasons, but I think one of the common reasons is that, the sense of community within the TV industry, lots of like-minded people, creative people coming together to create something remarkable. That's what everybody has in common. And I get the sense around Edinburgh is the love of TV that keeps the event going, and the number of hours by senior execs that they're putting aside for the love of it to create something, special and create talking points to take the industry forward.
That was nice to hear you say that, and I think that's correct, because I think often kind of producing a session is something people might do once, kind of thing. It's something you might do in your TV career. A couple of foolhardy individuals have done it twice or more, but it does have that kind of support, and it's about then being up there on the ground, and then there is a buzz. I hope is different to most other events, and that is because it's a festival, and being in Edinburgh makes it special. And it means that you have a sort of busy day there, on the ground, and then in the evening there's always events, and then people decamp to different bars and pubs, and there's a massive social side to it, and we know that it is a people business, isn't it? People like to hang out together and talk and such like. So that's crucial to everything we do. But it all comes back to those amazing people in TV rolling up their sleeves, doing their day job, and then as well as helping to sort of produce amazing stuff we can put on the schedule.
Yeah. And for those who haven't been to Edinburgh or maybe coming this year for the first time, I guess that one of the key differences about the event is, the clues in the name. This is a festival as opposed to being a market. Usually at markets all around the world, a lot of the senior execs are basically hidden away in half-hour meetings, pitch meetings going on from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, then go for dinner and all the rest of it. This event, the execs are fully engaged in the panel sessions, aren't they? People really engage with them, and a lot of people are speaking about them and discussing them in the foyer afterwards. And, it's a real opportunity for the industry to sort of take stock of where it is right now and actually talk about the future. And I think, to me, that's one of the really different parts of it. Although I think, and we'll come to talk about it in a second, there are opportunities for you to meet industry people and schedule meetings with them. But that's not what it's about, is it? It's more about meeting people for lunch and for dinner maybe, but actually getting in there and engaging with those panel sessions. Yeah,
that is what it's about. But then I think I would add that kind of panel session, it's not a conference. So there are kind of really meaty industry debates, and they can become quite intense, quite heavy, depending on the subject matter. But then there are things that are just out and out fun. And I also think there's a kind of like an Edinburgh way of doing things. So just one example. So this year we've got the chairman of the BBC, got Richard Sharp, which is great, which is a great get, and he's obviously got something to say. It's an incredibly important moment for the BBC. But we've put David Harewood, the actor, in as the person who will ask him the question. So you have a great cultural figure. David is known for his drama work, but he also made great docs and has a voice and and uses it. So we kind of have a cultural figure interviewing the head of a huge cultural organisation, and it just feels like that's sort of what we want to do, rather than have something that, not that it would be dry otherwise, but just to kind of inject some sort of extra energy into it, which sounds a bit pretentious, but that's what we're aiming for.
So let's take a look at the festival lineup then, Stewart. Let's talk in a bit of detail. And rather than, I suppose, going through the 3 days, which is Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, the 24th, 25th and 26th of August, the festival's organised into strands, isn't it? There's Connected, Spotlight On, there's some keynotes, the sessions and awards, and I've probably missed out one or two others. Let's just go through those in order and tell us a little bit about, to begin with, Connected. What's Connected about?
Sure. So that's the piece of the festival where If you're a delegate and you want to meet the commissioners direct, you don't want to kind of put your hand up in a session and ask a question, you've got something specific to talk about, you can carve out a really quick meeting with them. You do face-to-face sit-down. So it's kind of it's often, producers, content people meeting commissioners or people who've got access to funding and such like. And it's really making those connections in these really short meetings, and then you pick up from there on in. But there's hundreds of meetings over the course of the festival within that sort of framework, and the point is that could be a jump-off point for something great to follow.
It's perhaps not the normal half-hour pitch meeting, but it might be an opportunity to maybe meet a commissioner that you've never met before and start a relationship, which is so key in this industry.
Yeah, 100%. That is a chance to sit down with sort of senior people, all of the broadcasters or SVODs or other platforms, in fact, now, and kind of getting to know who those decision makers are, and then you take it from there.
The next strand that I wanted to talk about is Spotlight On. Looking across the 3 days, we've got Spotlight on, some of the biggest commissioning businesses in the UK and also international TV industry. We've got Spotlight on Amazon Studios, ITV, Snap. We have UK TV. We have Netflix, BBC, Channel 4, Sky, and Disney Plus. So that's a pretty strong lineup. So is that just a lot of those platforms and broadcasters presenting what they're looking for? What do those consist of, those sessions?
It is that. I mean, they're typically a kind of story of two halves in that for each of those spotlight sessions, or for most of them, you almost get kind of the leadership piece from the overall creative leader. They do the big picture stuff, what's been working, what the plans are for the future, the direction of the channel or channels or the service, if it's not, one of those. And then it kind of breaks out into more the sort of genre heads. So whoever is in charge of entertainment and scripted and such like, and each organisation is different, so it's not completely cookie cutter. But the idea is definitely that you get to hear from the absolute, from the leadership team, from the leader themselves, and then from sort of their team as well. So you go away with their vision, if you like, and then you also go with the shopping list stuff as well, but from the people right at the top of those trees in terms of whether that be docs or drama, etc., etc. And I mean, I think you ran through them, and they're always really well attended, and you would expect the broadcasters to be there. And we don't take it for granted. It's amazing they're there, and they bring out their sort of top people every time. And then sort of slowly over, in recent years, we've had the streamers become sort of part of that fabric as well. So now you would expect Amazon and Netflix and now Disney to be there, which is brilliant. But then I think maybe the next sort of turn of the wheel is when you see people like Snap come in, people who've got money to spend on content. UK has incredible producers. They want to be connected with them. So it's kind of interesting when you see kind of that, those spotlights, what used to be controller sessions, years ago, that kind of getting broader and broader in terms of who's coming in and saying, this is what we're doing. How, this is how you can work with us. This is what we want. This is how much money we have to spend.
Those sound like, really crucial sessions. And I'm presuming they're pretty much packed, aren't they? Do you have to get there early for those sessions? Is it a case of queue at the door to make sure you got a seat?
There definitely will be a queue at the door, Justin. Yeah, I think if you want to be front row, certainly.
Well, interesting that Netflix are there. Maybe there'll be more of a focus on building their relationships with the production industry at the time when the streamer wars are becoming ever more competitive.
Definitely that. You're right, Justin. And I think what's happening in the news in any given year absolutely feeds into those spotlight sessions and where the conversation goes. So it's impossible that the BBC and Channel 4, there won't be questions to their top execs about, how that situation informs what they're doing. You mentioned Netflix. Obviously, there's been a lot of news around Netflix, but I think the same could be said of sort of each one of those organisations. Sort of what's happening to them in the sort of broader news flow definitely informs what they will be talking about. But I think oftentimes producers kind of go there and they just want to get the very latest understanding of how they can work with them, what they're after, against that sort of bigger picture context.
Detailed industry intelligence then, so get there early for those sessions. Now, the keynotes are also perhaps the highest profile events at Edinburgh. Of course, because, often talent and the execs that you attract are some of the biggest in the world. So what are the keynotes that we should be looking out for? And obviously some have been announced already, but can you just give us a run through of some of the names that we can expect?
The question I get asked most in the run up to the festival is who is this year's McTaggart? And that's, for those who haven't been before, on the first day of the festival in the evening, we have the McTaggart lecture, which is sort of an industry cultural a luminary, but someone who's got something to say. That platform is for someone who's got something to say, give it to them. And, there are ramifications, or, the industry sort of sits up and listens, and there's a conversation starter. And this year we've got Emily Maitlis, which is amazing, to be honest. I'm really very, very pleased that Emily's agreed to do it, because she hasn't done anything since she left the BBC, and she's sort of starting on a whole new chapter, I guess, with Global and the new podcast that she's doing with John Sopel and others, which is really exciting. But we've sort of caught her ahead of the launch of that and post Beebs. I think it's a really interesting moment. She's someone who's got something really interesting to say, and will do it in a way that is incredibly engaging. So that, whether I sort of like it or not, the McTaggart does sort of frame the festival in many ways. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I think that it's always the first question people ask. So having Emily is great. I mean, we're doing something interesting actually with previous people who've given the McTaggart and getting them back to come back and reflect. So we have Dorothy Byrne, and obviously she spoke a lot about how journalists and broadcasters deal with politicians and such like. And a lot of what she was talking about became kind of more and more relevant in the years after her speech, with Armando Iannucci, who spoke about the BBC and public service broadcasting in a way that, again, just feels like as relevant, if not more. We've got Jack Thorne, who last year was talking about how TV needs to do better for disabled people, and kind of coming back 1 year after and reflecting is great. And then David Olashoga, who the year before Jack was talking about a sort of lost generation of black talent within TV, which prompted some really interesting conversations and maybe some sort of soul searching at an industry level. And lots has happened since because of that. So it's kind of cool to get people who've done it before and delivered amazing McTaggart lectures come back to kind of say, well, where are we now? So, who knows what Armando has to say about the current state of the BBC, or Dorothy, about Channel 4, and then Jack and David and what's happened, in terms of the themes they brought to the table. And then that happens earlier in the day. So we have that, which is kind of a sort of fresh take on the McTaggart, sort of a legacy piece, if you like. And then we have Emily in the evening, who hopefully will just ignite a whole new conversation.
Yeah. And for an international audience who may not be aware of Emily Maitlis, so Emily Maitlis is one of the leading journalists in the UK, and she was presenter for many years of Newsnight, which was one of the key political programmes on the BBC. And you probably know her from the Prince Andrew interview that she famously conducted a couple of years ago now, and of which now there's even 2 scripted shows being made on the back of just that interview or the run up to that. Emily's definitely going to be one of those don't miss sessions, isn't she?
100%. Yeah, she really is. And I think that sometimes it's about getting kind of the right person, but at the right time as well. I'm not sure in another year Emily necessarily have said yes, but it just feels like the timing is right. And as you say, there's a couple of movie projects in the works based on the Prince Andrew interview, which obviously resonated way beyond the UK. It was like an amazing piece of work by her in terms of her sort of journalism cred. So yeah, I'm super excited by that. But then in terms of other keynote pieces we have going on, we have David Nevins, who from CBS Paramount. It's interesting because he came to the festival years ago when he was a very senior US exec, and he's just proceeded to become even more senior and more senior still. So it's quite interesting to have him at the time when Paramount Plus is launching, and there's a discussion around how many SVOD, how many streaming services can exist out in the world. So the timing just feels really, really good for him. So very much looking forward to that. And then we'll have kind of an in-conversation piece with David Harewood as well, which I think will work really nicely.
And you have the alternative McTaggart as well, don't you?
Yes, yeah. I was just about to say the alternative McTaggart. The McTaggart has a certain format. It's it's an amazing person. They stand at a lectern and they speak for 35 minutes, and it's kind of, hushed room. The alternative doesn't have to be like that. There's a bit more room to play with in terms of how it's set up. But we've got Rose Ayling-Ellis, actor, obviously was in EastEnders and won Strictly, created some amazing moments on Strictly. She is incredible, and I think that's going to definitely be one to tune into. Instead of making that a sit-down sort of interview, sort of conversation type piece, she wanted to write something. She wanted it to be a 30-minute address, and it was like, wow, if that's what you want, then let's go for it. And I've seen it take shape, and it's really going to be something I think really that's going to get people sitting up. And then she will do a kind of in conversation bit with Afua Hirsch, who is this year's chair of the advisory committee, and obviously a brilliant figure herself as well. So you kind of get Rose's address, and then you get her sitting down with Afua and kind of engaging with the audience as well. So yeah, that's definitely another highlight.
So is there any other talent you can tell us about, Stewart, that's going to be at Edinburgh?
We're doing our own version of The Repair Shop with Jay and the crew. They're going to be in Edinburgh. And one of the guests is Judi Dench, which is going to be amazing. And I've kind of got a bit clued in because she's taken an item to the barn already, and then the repairers have been working on it, and there'll be a live reveal at the festival, which is going to be great. But we've got lots of talent as well. That's going to be a real moment. But we've got Mo Gilligan and Dolly Alderton and Rose Matafeo and lots of other kind of talent that people who are sort of all different stages of their careers, I think. And Justin, I know you're a football fan. We've also got a session with footballers who've moved into sort of unscripted and entertainment, talking about their take on the TV world, which I think will be fun. But you've got Troy Deeney there, who's made an amazing doc. You've got Anton Ferdinand, who's kind of got an interesting story, and then you've got Dion Dublin, who's kind of more on the entertainment side. So that's just a flavour, I guess, in terms of some of the talent that's there. And Diane Morgan, of course, who's receiving our Outstanding Achievement Award, and is very funny, and that's going to be another big up moment, I think.
And you've got Logan Roy, who's going to be at Edinburgh as well, which is perfect, really. One of the finest Scottish actors. Brian Cox, obviously, is going to be there. Real life Logan Royce. That's exciting. He's probably one of the biggest names from a talent perspective, isn't he?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement. I mean, I think particularly within sort of TV and media circles, Succession feels like a must-watch. Full stop. It's such a great show. But to have someone who plays a sort of aging media baron just has sort of an extra resonance, I think, when you're talking about a TV festival. And he's not there just to talk about Succession. You've got such a body of work that you can get into, and you can also talk about the sort of world outside of TV as well. But yeah, there is a sort of very sort of delicious Succession flavour to having Brian there. I can't deny that.
And I think between Emily Maitlis and Brian Cox, I'm sure there's going to be lots of headlines that we're going to be reading in the press as well. So that's going to be interesting. And then obviously you have the awards as well, which run, I think, on the Thursday, don't they? The Edinburgh TV Awards. What are the main categories for the Edinburgh TV Awards? Normally at the festival, at any given moment, there are kind of 4 or more things going on. But for the awards, we kind of shut down. So everything focuses on the awards themselves. It's not your typical award ceremony. It's not kind of everyone, so people sitting at tables and it goes on for sort of 6 hours, through the night kind of thing, or right through an evening. We do it in the day. It's fairly, but in terms of award ceremonies anyway, we deliberately have always kept it kind of short and sharp. Sophie Duker will present. I feel so not that they're not all big and important, but often it's kind of the sort of channel of the year is kind of one that people look out for. But then there's also Best Actor, Best Drama, etc. And I think the shortlist this year it's just phenomenal. There's so much good stuff there, and obviously a lot of people from those shows or who make those shows will be there. And Sophie Duker will do an amazing job presenting it. We're really, really happy that she agreed to do that as well. So yeah, it's kind of a fun. Is that the right word? It's kind of a moment to enjoy. I think it's a sort of celebratory moment. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And all of this takes place under one roof, essentially, the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. That's right, isn't it?
Everything is in what we call the EICC, exactly, the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. Actually, this year we do have one thing. We've worked with the film festival to pull off something with the His Dark Materials team, and the cast, or some of the cast of that show, the young cast actually, will be in town along with the producers and such like. And Nihal Arthanaik will present that, and that will be in the film house, and that's actually a joint effort with the film festival and appears in both of our schedules, which is fun. It means, to the two festivals sort of got heads together and saw what we could pull off. And it's a massive show. And the good thing about that, or the interesting thing is for fans, is it's open to the public as well as delegates, but it's a big sneak peek of the third and final season. So that's something to look forward to.
Tell us about the charitable element of Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's a good point, Justin. Ultimately, what we do, any money we make does go back into talent schemes and programs that really, I've seen it now firsthand, really allow people to sort of progress their careers and learn new things and make new networks and contacts. And when you see it up close, they're genuinely, like, the sort of the care and love that goes into organising those is huge, and they work. That's why we have a lot of the sort of alums come back, in bigger and bigger TV jobs, I guess, over the years. But that is one thing I think that makes us different to a lot of events, in that there is a price for the ticket. And this year we did make a big effort to make it much more accessible for freelancers and such like, and allow sort of, some new blood to come. But ultimately, that ticket price is sort of funding sort of that schemes and talent schemes piece that is really great to see, in effect.
And every Edinburgh wouldn't be complete without, the social side of things, and which is one of the key parts of it, actually. Lots of late nights up in Edinburgh. The George really is always, traditionally been the centre of that. And that's where there's going to be a party on the Thursday night, isn't there, at the George, which is kind of the awards after show party.
Yeah, there's loads of drinks and parties, Justin, and yeah, you're on the money. That is one part of why people want to come, to hang out together, socialise to an extent. And there's a big party that Meta are putting on, but every day there's lots of different drinks and other things happening. So there's ample opportunity to stay up as late as you like, I think.
There are even some breakfast events as well, if you can make those. But I personally don't think I'll make any of those already. But
no, you won't be there for a bacon roll in the morning, Justin.
I don't think so. I think you might see me coming in and sort of mid-morning. Is probably the case. Stewart, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking time out to chat to me. And what are we, T-minus 10 days or less than that or something? I don't know.
No, it's been great. And like I say, I love the podcast. I'm always happy to come on. So thanks for asking me back.
Fantastic. Well, I'll see you up there. Good luck with everything. I'll see you in Edinburgh. And all of our listeners, if you're going to be at Edinburgh, can't wait to see you all in person again up at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. So, Stewart, thanks a lot. Best of luck with everything. And we'll see you soon.
See you there. Cheers, Justin.
Well, that's about it for this week's TellyCast. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's great to be back. Just a quick reminder that all the videos from the recent TellyCast Content Funding Festival panel sessions are available to stream right now for free at tellycast.com. And a date for your diaries. Our next event, the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, takes place in London on November the 10th. We'll be announcing more information on that in the next few days. And on next week's show, we'll be up in Edinburgh, chatting with the movers and shakers of the UK TV industry from the Edinburgh TV Festival. So if you're in town, please come and say hello. Until then, as always, stay safe.
Global producers, distributors, and rights holders, why are you waiting for license fee payments from your productions, both new and back catalogue? Pipe buys your entertainment receivables and turns it into upfront capital immediately. Pipe can help you pull forward up to 5 years worth of contracted license fees from all the major streamers and broadcasters. So you can use the capital to produce more, acquire more, finance more, and grow your business on your own terms. Sign up today at pipe.com/entertainment. That's pipe.com/entertainment and start fast forwarding your receivables now.